Greetings to Safe Citizen members, and in fact, all South Africans that will see this important broadcast. Tonight, we are discussing the state of firearm training, competency training in South Africa. And we are very fortunate to have with us the National Secretary of the Professional Firearm Trainers Council, Mr. Winton Africa. Winton will discuss some of the proposed changes from government's point of view in and around the firearm training environment and explain why the Safe Citizen campaign, bolstered with PFTC and many other stakeholders, think that this is a bad idea. Welcome to you, Winton. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Jonathan, and thank you to you, and thank you, and good evening to your viewers.
Winton, I think before we get into the meat of the questions that I would like to discuss with you, just give us a bit of a background about your short bio or CV, your history and your background.
Jonathan, I was employed with Correctional Services, as we know, as a national institution since 1986. And I've been a member of Correctional Services up until March of 2024, until I took early retirement. My firearm training career basically started roughly in August of 1996, when I was appointed as the team leader for the Allendale Management Area Emergency Support Team, previously also known as the Task Force or the Task Team or the Reaction Unit. So basically, since August 1996, I had to get involved in training, security training for my fellow correction officials, EST officials, which then led to me also becoming involved in firearm training in the correctional services environment. It was only later that I officially and legally did the training course with the International Firearm Training Academy. That's now since the inception of the Firearm Control Act 60 of 2000, which then basically allowed us to do a course in becoming a firearm instructor as we know it now. And since then, been involved in firearm training up to this moment. Yes.
Okay. So we're talking about a good 30 years of understanding at a detailed level the firearm training industry. And in fact, you and I have a history of this as well. We're both ITA instructors or industry certified instructors, and both of us, in fact, industry certified counselors as well, which allows us to train instructors and assessors. So I think tonight we've got some good experience. We have some good experience between the two of us. And I think we can take our viewers and listeners through an interesting chat around this. So at the heart of this is the plans of government or some sectors of government. I'm not even sure that it's actually a strategy of the government, but rather one or two sectors of government that would like to get their hands perhaps on the training industry. But for viewers who may not yet understand the seriousness of this issue, what would you say is the central concern of the Professional Firearm Training Council that we're raising about these proposed changes to the training regimen?
The concern at this stage for us as the Professional Firearm Trainers Council, also known as the PFTC, is the fact that we have been building and working on a system where firearm training, whether it's instructors or whether it's the instructors that is doing the training for Joe public, we have a quality management system and a quality assurance system in place. And we've been doing that for the last 14 years, where we are able to not only ensure that the firearm instructors meet the standard, but also making sure that the training that we put out there, that Joe Public goes through because he wants to obtain a firearm license, that training meets the standard in ensuring that the person is in the first place proficient, he's got the knowledge, the skill, and then also that he is competent according to the law to eventually obtain a firearm license and to handle and use a firearm safely in the normal public environment. So our concern is that we don't want that standard at any level to go down or to go just flourish away and be thrown away purely because we want to bring in another system that does not ensure that we meet the standard of training and proficiency.
So would you agree with me then that what we're saying essentially is that there is a perfectly functional system? It's been proven since 2012. Millions of unit standards have been issued. It's a very high level of intervention. The South African Police Services can go onto a computer-based system from their offices and interrogate any learner results. And we are asking the question, why would we want to change such a system? And that is our concern. There is no good reason to change that system. Would you agree with me on that?
Jonathan, yes, I agree with you 100%. That is absolutely the concern that we have. If I can just quickly elaborate on that. Currently, just briefly, the training that the person goes through that would like to obtain a license to eventually buy a firearm, he would go through training that involves formative assessment, where, for instance, he can have a manual and some notes in the form of lectures that he can have at home. He can do homework, read through it, study it, and when he is ready, he can then eventually attend a course where he will then be tested, open book tested, formatively, and then from there proceed to a summative assessment, also called a closed book test.
Yeah.
And the standard for that, or the passing mark for that, is at this stage 80%. That is only on the theory. As soon as he comply and have met that standard, the learner will then go to what we call an integrated assessment system, where his physical skill will be tested in the form of a ability test. And only then he will eventually proceed to going to the shooting range and shoot live round or do a live shooting exercise. So there's a whole process, and there's no single hours involved, meaning you cannot decide on a Saturday morning that you want to do this, and by 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, you are competent and proficient. And that system has been working for the last 10 years at least.
Thank you very much. That was a very useful description of the training process. So let me ask you this. When they talk about replacing this system that you have described with a skills-based system, which all of us understand is a much lower benchmark in terms of actually qualifying, have you seen any evidence of this skills-based system that it could in any way at least even equal or be better to the current system? Any evidence?
No. The short answer to that is no. I haven't seen any evidence that can even halfway meet the standard as we currently
have. So if I then restated our concern again, that a critical and technically driven civilian training and quality assurance system would be placed under the custodianship of a division in SAPS that has never before been involved in civilian training, in designing it, monitoring it, quality assuring it, or even presenting it. How do you feel about that? That actually, because if we look at the current arrangement between PFTC and the South African Police Services, since 2012, it has worked very well with the Central Firearms Register, with the CFR. And it has been a good relationship. The CFR has come to rely on the statements of results from the training organizations from PFTC that are loaded onto the learner management system. And SAPs know that if a learner presents a statement of results with a certificate of proficiency from an authorized and accredited training provider, that they can take that as a good measure of that applicant for competency. And the reason that we can say that is true is because if an applicant for competency cannot produce that proof of training from a PFTC accredited training provider, they will not issue a competency. So we know that it works. Now, our concern, and I'm asking you, is this also the concern that you have, is that a division in SAPS, which is known colloquially as the training division, now wants to apparently take this over, apparently with the blessing of the QCTO. Is that a concern for you?
Jonathan, that's a huge concern. And as you've now rightfully mentioned, we have a very good relationship up until this moment. As we are speaking, the Professional Firearm Trainers Council have actually an excellent relationship with the Central Firearm Register. I also see the police services, the CFR in South Africa, as the official custodian of firearm ownership, firearm licensing for private owners in South Africa. And we would like to continue this relationship with the CFR. Like I said earlier, we've been doing this for 14 years in conjunction with them, and they've been accepting our PFTC statement of results for all of these years. The concern is if we now move away and we go to a skills program where there's absolutely no proof, legal proof, that this will work. There's no independent quality assurance system in place. There's no proof that even SAPS or CFR can guarantee to us that this will work. Because basically this will mean what we now have as instructors, assessors, moderators, that will become useless. We definitely cannot afford that. So at this stage, we would like to have SAPS still as the custodian of firearm licensing in South Africa. We would like to work in conjunction with them. But unfortunately, if they are not willing to assist us in keeping that standard that we've been meeting for the last 14 years and even longer, then that still is a huge concern to me. I would hope that we will be able to convince the systems to not go that direction.
Yeah, I think that you make a very valid point, and it's important to understand that the SAPS CFR are not necessarily advocating for or pushing this change at all. And
quite right.
It's up to the PFTC and its stakeholders and also the public in general to make this point. And I think I just wanted to establish for our viewers that it's important for them to understand that you are actually speaking to us tonight as the official spokesperson of Professional Firearm Trainers Council, and that you are carrying across the views of your colleagues and the industry in general, the stakeholders.
Yes.
So,
for sure.
I think that I was going to ask you about, from a technical training point of view, what are the most serious weaknesses you would see in the proposed skills-based program, but I think that you have already, in fact, almost answered that question in terms of the fact that, let me ask you this. In the skills-based program that we are interrogating at the moment, Safe Citizen is doing a critical review of it. we're not finding anything close to the substance, the number and the scope and scale of the unit standards that are available under the firearm training system at the moment. So you've got basic unit standards, which the members of the public have, depending on if they want a manual rifle, a shotgun, a semi-automatic rifle for sport shooting, a handgun for self-defense, a handgun for sport shooting. Then you've got the business unit standards that the security officers all have to do. It's the same platforms of firearms, but at a higher level. Then we have tactical unit standards, which is what your higher level armed response teams in the security companies would do. Those people that respond to armed robberies and hijackings and things like that. Training that game rangers and anti-poaching teams would do, or also in the business unit standards or the tactical unit standards. And then you have range officers, people that control shooting ranges all around the country where the public can go and safely shoot. And finally, you've got instructors. And even above instructors, you've got the assessors, the people that actually assess the way that a learner has been trained and how they relate to the training material, whether they are able to satisfy the outcomes-based education. Now, in the skills program, all of that stuff just disappears. There is no path of progression in the industry. There's no path of progression in the training. There's no quality assurance. There are no custodians and gatekeepers of the standards. And I'm wondering what your comment is around that, based on what you know of the very little bit of work that's been done in this so-called skills program.
Jonathan, you summed it up perfectly. As we are speaking, I am busy running a instructor course, a full instructor course. And if I now just very briefly consider what we had to do with these learners or candidate instructors since they've started with the course last week, I can imagine all that effort, all that procedures, all that testing of skill and knowledge, all that repetition, all the dry firing, all the processes in place to make sure that if the assessor is teaching the wrong information, the moderator will pick that up eventually. If the moderator makes a mistake, or if he lowers the standard, the verifier will at some stage that misconduct or that mistake. It scares me to think that everything that we put in place to ensure that whoever trains other people to use firearms or whoever uses firearms, the mere fact that all of that can just vanish is for me the scary thing that I can think of, and it would be detrimental even to my own career, knowing that so many years of becoming or trying to be a expert in presenting this training, transferring the knowledge, all of that can go down the drain. That is really a sad thing, just to even consider.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point. And Winton, I want to haul that out again, what you said, that it actually scares you to even consider that training, that level of training might not be available to South Africans anymore. So let's look at the commercial security industry. If you look at it from with the hat of the security industry on, how do you think that this could impact the private security industry?
I think you are aware of the fact that currently we have about 4 times the amount of security officials in South Africa as we have SEPS members, with CIRA having hundreds of thousands of registered security officials. And some of them currently up to the level of tactical level, as you've just mentioned. The people that I rely on when we have a challenge or an issue or a break-in or any life-threatening situation at home tonight, that is the people that we rely on if SEPS is under and are not able to react and come to our rescue in time.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
scares me a lot to know that even though that official, that security official, with all the good intentions, come and assist me, to help me, to protect me, if he doesn't meet the standard of the training that is needed for him to safely handle and use his firearm in my house, outside of my house, in front of my house, in the street, meaning in a business environment, it is terribly concerning to know that you would find hundreds of thousands of security officials that within the next year or two, even after qualifying as security officials, might not meet the skill and the proficiency and the knowledge to actually come and do their job in protecting you and me as South Africans. That is really scary. That is if they can get to the point where they can get to your house. Imagine using the firearm without proper training and they shoot the wrong person, or they lose the firearm, or the firearm is taken away from them because they just don't have the necessary training. It's really scary. I really cannot think how we can ever even consider moving away from the system as we have it currently.
Yeah, thank you. So, would you agree with me that if anybody were to propose changes to this system, they need to come with a lot of proof? They need to prove their abilities. They need to prove the sustainability of their system. And they need to come with a good reason to change it. Is it going to make the lives of South Africans much better? Is it going to make South Africans safer? Is it going to improve a standard of training? How is the public going to benefit from this? And do you think that we are justified to ask them that question? Come to Parliament and tell us, how is the public going to benefit from this? Or in the alternate form, the question could be, do you think that Safe Citizen and the alliance that is moving against this training plan, this planned change in training, is justified in asking for a moratorium against any changes until that proof and the good reason is supplied? How do you feel about that?
I absolutely agree with that, and I support that. If we would go the way where we also support Safe Citizen, who is trying, and whose ideology it is to make everybody safe in South Africa, whether you own a firearm or not. So I would agree that yes, going the way of a moratorium to stop this and to demand, saying we have a quality assurance process in place. We have a system that is working. We have subject experts that is presenting this training. We have even an ethical process to make sure whoever gets involved in the firearm training or firearm training at all will uphold the standard. At this stage, we have the right to say, unless you can convince, and unless you come forward with a lot of more confirmation, prove that you actually have a better system. And remember, we've been doing this for the last 14 years, as I've mentioned earlier. Unless you can come with proof, and unless you are willing to help us, then we have at this stage, in conjunction with Safe Citizen, I think we have a real leg to stand and to say we cannot allow this to go down the drain.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach, Winton, and I agree with you entirely. So, in closing, and speaking as the PFTC, what, in the PFTC's view, should happen now in the public and in the stakeholder environment, in the narrow stakeholder environment, the training industry itself and SAPS, and in the broader stakeholder environment of the public. What should happen now to basically make sure that we remain as the guardians of this system, and that we properly draw to government's attention this potential issue, this enormous potential issue?
Jonathan, I think the Professional Firearm Trainers Council, in conjunction with bodies like Safe Citizen, should start off by firstly reject this proposal to change. There should be a wide rejection coming from the public, coming from us, to say there is just no way that we can allow government or other stakeholders that is in favor of that to take away a process that is working, that guarantees everything from the onset up until the person have the firearm on his person. That there's no way that we can allow that to fall away. So our first job should be to reject that, to respectfully reject, to respectfully inform why we cannot move away from a quality assurance process where instructors and even users are upheld to a standard that is quality assured. We need to start by doing that. Members of the public should know that whether you own a firearm or not, the moment this goes south, you will have to rely on people, whether it's police, whether it's security officials, you will have to rely on people to protect you, to assist you in ensuring that you and your family is safe, who is not going to meet the standard, even though they have the commitment, even if they are willing, they are not going to have the standard level of training and background to handle and use firearms if we allow this skills program to replace the good standard training as we have it currently. And that is something that we should, members of the public, Joe public out there, should know, and we should start by rejecting it widely so that at some stage government should see that we are not happy with what they want to do with us.
Yeah, Winston, thank you for that. And I think that before I close off, I just want to remind people that are watching this that this change could happen as early as the 30th of June, 2026, not even 6 weeks away, or just over 6 weeks away. So we really need to get moving on it. But I like the way that you pulled this in to public safety, because at the end of the day, this is about the public interest and the public safety. It's not a narrow stakeholder group. And we have another and a parallel conversation going on in this country about the Firearms Control Amendment Bill and the plans of the government to try and disarm lawfully armed South Africans. And these two things are, to an extent, moving in parallel. But the common ground between them is public safety. And we are focused on public safety. We cannot let go of this environment, particularly given the circumstances in which South Africans, many millions, tens of millions of South Africans live on a daily basis. So on behalf of Safe Citizen, on behalf of the Alliance, of which the Professional Firearm Trainers Council is a part, I would like to thank you very much for your contribution this evening. I don't think it's going to be our last interview around this issue, and we would like to invite people to contact Safe Citizen for more information, to join us and to share this wherever they have an opportunity to talk about it and influence people. Winston Africa, thank you very much for your expert opinion this evening.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you also for the work that you are doing from the side of Safe Citizen. Keep on doing the good thing, and all of the best. And thank you very much once again for having me tonight on your program. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Winston. God bless.
You too. Stay safe. Bye-bye.